What's up everybody, it's Austin here from Make Pop Music and Austin Whole Audio and Visual, and today we are back with another tutorial. And for this tutorial today, I wanted to address something that a lot of you are asking all of the time in the comments, and that is, how do I make my 808s? So if you haven't seen before, we have done a couple videos on 808s and I've made those in Serum. We'll link those in the description below so you can go find those if you want to. However, it's a new year, it's a new dawn, and I am using a new plugin to make all of my 808s. So today we're going to be hopping into Ana2 and I'm going to kind of show you guys how to make an 808 from scratch, including how to pick your oscillators, how to set your ADSR, how to use envelopes and filters to kind of give it a little bit of extra sauce. And I'm going to show you how to make anything from a really standard 808 to something that's wide and distorted and crunchy and kind of everything in between. So I know that an 808 typically refers to the Roland 808 drum pad that is basically just a really sustained kick with some sub. However, that's not going to be what we're doing today. We're actually going to go over how to make that sustained sub sound. So you can layer this over your own kicks. You can kind of layer this however you want in your productions, but it is not the traditional 808. Just wanted to lay that out because if not, I know I'll get crucified in the comments. So without further ado, let's actually hop into my DAW and I'll show you guys how to make these 808s. And I'll also link in the description below a pack of free 808s in Ana2. If you want those, just click on that link in the description. It'll take you to our website, put in your email address, and then we'll send you out an email that will have the new free content. Other than that, let's hop in and let's get to it. Now we're actually in the DAW. I want to go ahead and kind of show you guys an 808 that I've made for a song, just so you can kind of hear, you know, what we can do, and then I'll show you guys how to actually make some stuff from scratch and go ahead and process that however you want. So the 808 in this song is very, very, very simple. Wrapped around your finger, feelings are forming. Got me. So let's go ahead and let's talk about how to even make an 808 from scratch. So we're going to go ahead and open up Ana2. And then I'll go ahead and I will initialize this because they always load up to this beautiful dread lead. So let's initialize. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to pick a waveform or wavetable, whatever your synth is going to call. Let's go ahead and let's start off by making something that's just a really simple kind of short 808, something similar to like the Yummy 808 in like Bieber's new song. So for that, all we're going to want to do is we'll want a sine wave. And you hear that little click at the beginning. I don't love that. So I'm going to drive the attack of the amp envelope up just a bit to like maybe 2 milliseconds. And once you drive that attack up, that's going to get rid of that click. However, it's still going to come in exactly on beat because 2 milliseconds is not even audible. So now we've got our actual oscillator set and we've got the attack being fine. The next thing that we can do is we can actually go ahead and determine how long do we want this. So right now the decay is all the way up and the sustain is all the way up. So if we hold it, it's just going to keep going. However, let's drag the sustain down. And that sustain is basically saying that by the time that the decay runs out, where's that sustain going to keep it? So if you have it all the way up, just remember that sustain is going to keep the volume all the way up. And if you have it all the way down, that means that you're going to actually get that kind of sloping envelope, similar to something that you would see kind of like this. So let's just talk about ADSR in terms of something graphic. Your attack is going to be right here, that first point. Your decay is going to be how long it takes to actually slope down. And then your sustain is going to be where it ends. So if your sustain is down here, that would kind of cancel all of it out and it would just boom and then kind of fall. If you have it all the way up here, that's just like that. This is not actually routed to anything. I'm just using this for a graphic purpose. So let's go ahead and let's reset that. Perfect. And then what we're going to want to do. So now we have the A set. So you might think it's still sustaining, but that's only because the decay is so long. Let's bring this down and you can kind of hear it fall now. And then you've got your curve, which is basically how sharp is that going to happen. So if you want something like that Yummy bass where it's kind of plucky and it's not super long, let's do something like that. And then the release, the R right here, is going to be how long that lasts after you take your finger off of the actual key. So if we drive that way up, it'll sustain for 3 seconds. A lot of people will put release on their 808s. I don't love it because to me, when my 808 is over, I just want it to be over. I would much rather just draw in the length that I want. So I always bring my release pretty low. I don't bring it to 0 because you might get a click and a pop, but 20 milliseconds should be fine. So now we've got the ADSR set. As long as we hold it, that's fine. Let's go over some things that you can actually do to kind of sauce this up. One of those is going to be sync. If you drive up the sync, that's basically going to multiply the wave on top of itself, and that's where you're going to get a lot of those high-end harmonics. So let's do it pretty extremely. But like if you want like a really, really low 808, but that also has like this weird kind of like scooped top end, what I would do is I would recommend like drive the sync up, because you can kind of hear the difference. Here's with nothing. And you might say, yeah, that sounds cool, but like I don't want a lot of that top end. Now let's actually go to our filter. So I'll do the kind of Moog low pass. So now we've got an 808 that you can take really low. However, it still has the upper harmonics that are not in there really because they're kind of filtered out. And we've got the exact length and the exact sustain that we want. So let's do something a little shorter. Let's do something a little longer. So that's a pretty basic 808. We really have nothing insane going on right now. If you want to make the cutoff even more aggressive, you can kind of add this in. I'm pretty happy with it right here though. So we're not going to do anything else at the moment. So now we've got a pretty basic 808. What we can do is we can start adding a little bit of extra sauce. And what I like to do with them is I like to add something like a bit crusher on them and just put the rate. Let's turn it on. And it's kind of annoying sounding on its own, but in an entire mix, that might just help it poke out just a little bit. And you can even put the drive up. Another thing that I always recommend is I like putting the bend at 12. That's going to give you a full octave. So when you're using the actual pitch wheel, if you want to do, you can actually get those 808 slides, and that is so much easier when the bend is actually at 12. I'll also put them on mono just so we don't get any kind of like weird, that sounds gross. 808s, typically you only want one note. Otherwise, if they're low enough, you will start to actually get like your own little LFO, your low frequency oscillation, where you'll notice it kind of like wubs. And it's pretty gross sounding. So normally I'll turn it on mono. And if you want, you can even turn it on slide so you don't have to do your bass slides by yourself. You can do. So if you want to set that portamento up, you can. I typically don't, because I'll just draw in my 808 slides, or I'll prefer them a little bit more stabby. So now we've got the oscillator set, we've got the ADSR set, we've messed with the bend and the actual portamento. We've also shown you bit crushing. Another thing that you can do is you can actually add something like a tube drive on it. And this is kind of nice if you've got that, bit crusher on it. I kind of like the AX7 model. It kind of like does this weird thing where it scoops out the lows. And this kind of reminds me of like the 808 that you would hear in like The Box by Roddy Ricch or something. It's like really scooped and almost like kind of wonky. Let's take that bit crusher off so we can just mess with this a little bit more. We'll drive the tone down so we still get a lot of that low end. I'm going to take the portamento down. So now we've got something that's like a pretty gross sounding 808. Let's go ahead and let's talk about a couple more things that you can do. So I am going to use the G envelope here. I'm going to go to 2 since we kind of already messed with 1. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually, let's turn on snap, and that'll go right to the middle. And I'm kind of creating my own curve. And let's go ahead and let's take this to pitch coarse all. Let's set it to retrigger. Let's drag this over a little bit more and let's. So that's too slow. Let's drag it back a little bit more. Let's turn off some of this distortion so you can hear. But if we're dragging this up and we're getting that really, really quick pitch coarse fall, that's going to give you the actual sense of like an 808 hitting. So if you want something that's got a little bit more plump in it, you can do that. I don't love it. I would prefer to just kind of put my own actual kick plug-in under it. Let's turn this back on. Let's actually... And then what you can also do, as I know a lot of the times, especially in like hip hop 808s, like Post Malone will do this a lot, is it's not such a quick fall, but there is this kind of like detuned sense of like when it happens, the 808 is not quite in pitch and then it kind of falls to pitch. So let's go to the fine. Let's drag this back a little bit more. You can even drag this down a little bit if that's too much. So now we've pretty much messed with everything. Let's go ahead and let's talk about one more thing that you can do. And I'm gonna go ahead and take this off because I don't really want that kick sound in there. So now we've got a really good solid 808, tons of low end, a nice little bit of top end so you'll be able to hear it on a phone speaker. However, let's go ahead and let's actually add some width. And I know what a lot of you will probably think. You'll be like, why would you add width to an 808? I've done it before. Sounds really, really sick, especially in like more R&B songs. So what I'll do is I'll typically use a saw and I'll pull it up one octave, set the voices a little higher at like 5, make sure it's detuned, make sure there's no sub, and then what I'll do is I'll actually swap this over to filter 2. So I've got control of its own filter. I even set the filter envelope. Drag that down a little bit. To me, that's just a really cool way to kind of spice that up to where it's not such a generic 808. You are actually getting some stuff on the sides. Let's hear it with none of the extra post effect. You can even drag it down to the same octave. So now I've kind of shown you all of the tips and tricks to actually make the 808. Let's just go ahead and I'll kind of show you guys some of the possibilities. We'll just scroll through a couple of the 808s that I've actually made. So here's one. As you can see, this one actually uses the same sine wave. However, I've dragged the sub up on this. So I'll take the filter off so you can't really hear it. The sub right now is set to a square wave. However, you can make that a saw or a sine. I liked it a square because you're gonna get some of that top end, and then I've actually, again, added that Moog low pass and cut that off. And then again, you'll see I used a tube driver. So this is a good example of how you can use the sub and how that sub can actually be filtered out to add upper harmonics and kind of add a nice little bit of low end, just punch. So that's being backed up with that. Let's go ahead and go to another 808 so I can kind of show you guys. So this one's using a little bit different waveform. This is actually using one from the Slate Analog. It's the ARP sine. And this waveform is really, really sick because it has some harmonics already in it. I'll go ahead. This 808 will shake the house. So this one has a bit more pure low end. And it's got a nice little bit of that top end that you're hearing with the bit crusher and the tape. So right now we are really not doing much at all. It's just this. We are using the Rolly right here. Just take some top end off. So this 808 is another good example of just one oscillator doing a lot of work. Let's go ahead and look at one more. So this is a good example of one that I've actually pulled a kick into. You can actually load your own kicks and samples in Ana2. There's tons of videos on how to do it, so we're not gonna go over that in super depth. But I've actually added a kick under this one. So that one's really, really, really nice. And let's go ahead and let's actually add We've got some EQ on here. Just scooping out a little bit of that kind of those mids in like the 450 area. So as you can see, between using different waveforms, using different samplers, using different kind of filter types, and then using the ADSR, and then kind of actually doing pitch bends and stuff like that, literally endless possibilities. You could even go ahead and we'll make one more from scratch really quick, and I'll use a really, really weird waveform. That way you'll see that you can, let's make one out of this, the fart waveform. Love it. Let's see. And the reason that I'll use different waveforms, even though they're all being filtered out and they kind of all sound the same, is because you're going to get slightly different upper harmonics and it's just going to react differently. So you can hear that by the time you get up here, it's really, really hollow. Where something like the last one that we just did, like the odds or the long and thick, where you get up here, you still got a lot of that sine low end, but since this is not a pure sine wave, you're mostly just getting kind of buzziness up there. Let's go ahead and set that. And let's actually just make one that's just stupid saturated. I'm gonna turn this down a little bit. So now we're kind of getting that like kind of SoundCloud rap. Let's go ahead and let's add our own little kick area. You can also mess with the rate right here, and that will determine if you have something long. If you have something at 0 hertz, that's going to fall really slowly. If you have something really fast, that'll fall faster. So the higher the hertz, the quicker it'll fall. So we'll use something around like 0.5 hertz. And that's just another good way. So again, possibilities are endless. Hopefully after watching this 20-minute tutorial, you've got some ideas for 808s and can kind of go in and make any sound you want. Like I said, if you want, you can go into the description and download any of the ones that we've gone over in that description. Bada boom, we are done. As you can see, making 808s is pretty simple. All you really have to do is find a nice oscillator with a bit of low end, get your ADSR set. If there's any top end that you don't want, cut that out with a filter, and then you can add some stuff like distortion, saturation. You can even add chorus to some higher elements in the 808 if you're going to be able to layer it. And then you can go ahead and post-process it with things like max bass, R bass, any kind of EQ, any kind of extra modulation. So there are tons and tons of options that you can do with your 808s and your sub basses. However, this is just a kind of beginner's guide on how to actually create them from scratch. So if you guys like this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Definitely let us know in the comments below what you want to see next, and we will try to do that for you. Like I said, if you like these 808s and you want a little pack of ones that I've created from scratch, just go in the description and you can download those for free. But that is going to be it for this video. We will see you guys next time. Much love, make pop music. Peace out.